Jack Reed stared out the shuttle window as the massive luminary mothership grew larger. His heart beat faster. After years of studying alien languages, this was it. Real aliens. Real first contact. "You ready, Reed?" Captain Miller asked, checking her uniform one last time. Jack nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." The truth was, nobody was ready. 6 months ago, the luminary ships had appeared in Earth's orbit. After the initial panic, they had sent peaceful messages. They wanted to talk. They wanted to meet. And now Jack was part of the first human team to board their ship. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. Jack grabbed his tablet with his notes on the luminary language. It had taken him just 2 weeks to crack the basics of their speech patterns. That's why he was here. That's why they picked him. A 32-year-old linguist and xenobiologist with a knack for languages. The airlock doors opened. Jack took a deep breath and followed Captain Miller into history. The meeting room was huge, with tall ceilings and walls that seemed to glow with soft light. And there they were, the luminary. Tall, elegant beings with skin that shimmered like mother of pearl. They stood in a perfect line, wearing flowing robes with strange symbols. "Welcome, humans," said the tallest luminary in the center. His voice was deep but musical. "I am High Council Leader Theron. We are pleased to begin formal relations between our peoples." Captain Miller stepped forward with a practiced smile. "Thank you for your welcome. We bring greetings from Earth." Jack studied the aliens carefully. Most had the same pearly white skin, but one was different. Standing slightly behind Theron was a female luminary whose skin had a blue-purple sheen. She was staring right at Jack, her large, almond-shaped eyes unblinking. When the formal introductions were done, the humans and luminary sat at a large round table. Jack sat quietly, listening as Captain Miller talked about Earth's hopes for friendship. He noticed the blue-purple luminary was still watching him. "Now," said Theron, "we will perform the greeting of worlds." He made a complex gesture with his long fingers, moving them in a pattern. The other humans looked confused. Jack recognized it from his studies. It was a ritual greeting, but with a specific meaning. Without thinking, Jack stood up and made the return gesture, adding a small flourish at the end that meant with honor and respect. The room went silent. Theron's eyes widened. Then he smiled. "Your companion understands our ways," he said to Captain Miller. "Most impressive." The blue-purple luminary stepped forward suddenly. "Father, I wish to speak." Theron looked surprised but nodded. "I am Princess Elara," she said, her voice like chimes in the wind. "I request this human be assigned as my cultural liaison." She pointed directly at Jack. Everyone turned to look at him. Theron frowned. "Daughter, this is not the protocol we discussed. The human shows understanding of our ways," Elara insisted. "It is logical to pair us for cultural exchange." Captain Miller looked at Jack with raised eyebrows. Jack gave a small nod. This could be a huge opportunity. "We would be honored," Captain Miller said carefully. The meeting ended soon after. As the humans prepared to return to their quarters on the ship, Jack's tablet pinged with a message. It was in perfect English. "Meet me alone in the Garden of Echoes at the turning of the ship's cycle. Come alone. I have matters of great importance to discuss." It was signed with Princess Elara's mark. Jack stared at the message. Meeting alone with an alien princess was definitely against protocol. It could cause a diplomatic incident. It could end his career. He sent back one word: "Yes." Jack checked the hallway both ways before slipping through the doorway into the Garden of Echoes. His heart pounded in his chest. Meeting an alien princess in secret was not in the mission briefing. The garden was beautiful and strange. Tall plants with glowing leaves stretched toward the ceiling. Some looked like earth plants, but with odd colors and shapes. Others were completely alien. "You came," said a musical voice behind him. Jack turned to see Princess Elara. Up close, her blue-purple skin shimmered even more. Tiny points of light seemed to move beneath it, like stars in a night sky. I did, Jack said with a small bow, though I'm not sure I should have. Ilara smiled. I have studied humans extensively. You are curious beings. I knew you would come. She walked past him and touched one of the plants. It changed color in response. This is a hybridization garden, she explained. Earth plants and luminary plants growing together. Some die, some adapt, some become something new. She looked at Jack. Fascinating, isn't it? Very, Jack agreed, relaxing a little. You speak English perfectly. I learned all major Earth languages before we arrived, Ilara said proudly. I am particularly fond of your idioms. They really butter my bread. Jack tried not to smile. That's not quite how we use that phrase. See, this is why I need you, she said, suddenly serious. Jack Reed, do you know why the luminary came to Earth? Jack shook his head. For peaceful contact, trade, knowledge exchange. Those are good things. Yes, Ilara nodded. But there is more. My people face a crisis. She led him deeper into the garden, to a small sitting area surrounded by plants that gave off a soft, pleasant smell. The luminary have lived too long in isolation, she explained. Our genetic pool has become, she searched for the word, too small. We are becoming too similar. This causes health problems. Problems having children. Problems with new thinking. Jack nodded slowly. Genetic diversity. It's essential for a species to adapt and thrive. Yes, Ilara's eyes lit up. And humans have so much diversity. So many differences. So much adaptation. Your species is young but strong. Jack thought about this. So you came to study human genetics. To find a solution to your problem. To find a partnership, Ilara corrected. Both our species can benefit from knowledge exchange. She leaned forward. Tell me about Earth. About humans. About you. Jack spent the next hour telling her stories. About Earth's history, about human cultures, about his own life. Ilara listened with complete attention, asking smart questions. When Jack explained how humans form friendships and relationships, Ilara became particularly interested. So humans choose companions based on compatibility and mutual interest? She asked. Basically, yes, Jack said, though it's often more complicated than that. Ilara stood up suddenly. She straightened her robes and took a formal stance. Jack Reed of Earth, she said in a ceremonial voice, I find your genetic makeup intriguing. Your mind works in patterns that fascinate me. Your physical form is, she paused, acceptable. Jack blinked, unsure where this was going. Therefore, Ilara continued, following what I understand of human protocols for relationship formation, I formally request, be my mate, human. Jack's mouth fell open. No words came out. He tried to speak, then stopped, then tried again. That's not exactly how humans, he began. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the garden. Security breach in Sector 7, announced a voice. Unauthorized human presence detected in the royal gardens. Ilara's eyes widened. My father has discovered our meeting, she said. Heavy footsteps approached from outside. This will complicate matters, Ilara said calmly, while Jack looked frantically for an exit. Stand away from the princess. 6 tall luminary guards surrounded Jack and Ilara. Their skin glowed bright red. A sign of anger, Jack guessed. They carried long staffs that hummed with energy. High Council leader Theron strode into the garden, his robes flowing behind him. His face was stern. Father, Ilara began, I can explain. Silence, Theron said. He turned to Jack. Human, you have violated our trust. You will be removed from this diplomatic mission immediately. Captain Miller arrived moments later, her face pale with worry. Jack, what were you thinking? Before Jack could answer, Ilara stepped forward. The human is here at my request. For a scientific purpose. Theron's eyes narrowed. Explain. He has extensive knowledge of human genetic science, Ilara said. Knowledge that could help with our situation. Jack looked at her in surprise. He had studied some genetics, but he was hardly an expert. Theron was quiet for a long moment. Then he waved his hand. The guards lowered their staffs. Come, he said. All of you. We must speak privately. In Theron's private chamber, the truth came out. The luminary are dying, Theron said bluntly. Our genetic pool has become too similar. Each generation is weaker than the last. Fewer children are born. More suffer from diseases. We've suspected this for some time, Captain Miller said. But why involve Jack specifically? Theron looked at his daughter. Ilara stepped forward. Jack's genetic profile is unique, she said. Our scanners detected it when your shuttle docked. He carries genetic markers that show exceptional adaptability. Jack frowned. How do you know my genetic profile? The air scrubbers in your quarters, Ilara explained. They collect skin cells, hair. We analyze them. Captain Miller looked angry. That's a serious invasion of privacy. We are fighting for survival, Theron said. He didn't sound apologetic. Human genetic diversity might save the luminary. Your species adapts quickly. You survive in many environments. You resist diseases. These traits could help us. Jack's head was spinning. And the whole be my mate thing. He asked Ilara, was that just about genetics? The room went silent. Captain Miller shot Jack a look of shock. She said what? Theron's skin flashed a bright orange. Ilara stood tall. The science team believes human and luminary genetic material could be combined. It might solve our diversity problem. That was not part of our agreement. A new voice shouted. A male luminary had entered the room. His skin was almost white, his eyes cold. Commander Doran, Theron acknowledged. This is a private meeting. When it concerns the purity of our species, nothing is private, Doran said. He glared at Jack. Humans are primitive. Their DNA would pollute our bloodline, not save it. That's quite enough, Commander, Theron said firmly. Doran bowed stiffly and left, but his angry look lingered in Jack's mind. Over the next few weeks, Jack worked with the luminary scientists. He learned about their genetic problems and shared what he knew about human genetics. Ilara was always there, asking questions, making connections that others missed. One day, Jack was walking through a lower level of the ship when he heard a crash. A young luminary child had wandered into a storage area. Heavy containers were falling toward the child. Without thinking, Jack ran forward. He pushed the child to safety just as a container crashed down. It hit Jack's shoulder, sending pain shooting down his arm. The child's parents rushed over. Word of Jack's actions spread quickly through the ship. That night, Ilara visited him in the medical bay. You saved that child, she said softly. Many luminary are talking about it, even some who didn't trust humans before. Jack shrugged, then winced at the pain. Anyone would have done the same. Ilara sat beside his bed. My request to be your mate. It started as a diplomatic strategy, she admitted. But now I feel something I don't understand when I'm with you. Jack looked into her eyes. I think I might be feeling it too. Jack woke up with a strange feeling. For a moment, he thought he was back on Earth. He had been dreaming of a tall crystal city that he had never seen before. Yet it felt familiar, like a memory. You look troubled, Ilara said, entering the lab where Jack had fallen asleep at his workstation. Just dreams, Jack said, rubbing his eyes. Strange dreams about a city made of crystal towers. Ilara froze. That sounds like the old city on our home world. She studied his face carefully. How could you know about that? Before Jack could answer, the lab door opened again. Tom, a security officer from Earth, walked in with Mira, a female luminary scientist who worked closely with Ilara. We have a problem, Tom said quietly. A big one. Mira looked around nervously, then pressed a button on her wrist device. "This will block any listening devices for 2 minutes," she explained. "Commander Doran has more supporters than we thought," Tom said quickly. "They call themselves the Purists. They've infiltrated both the Luminary leadership and the Earth delegation." "How do you know this?" Jack asked. "I caught one of Doran's people tampering with the genetic research files," Mira said. "They're planning to sabotage the work and blame it on the humans." Ilara's skin darkened with concern. "When?" "Tomorrow," Tom said. "During the big ceremony where your father is going to announce the progress of the joint research. They'll corrupt the data, destroy months of work, and make it look like human sabotage." Jack stood up, felt suddenly dizzy, and grabbed the edge of the table. "You're experiencing it too," Ilara said, watching him closely. "The connection." "What connection?" Jack asked. Ilara hesitated, then explained. "Luminary can form mental bonds with those they're close to. It's part of our biology, a way to ensure genetic compatibility. It usually only happens between Luminary." "But I'm human," Jack said. "That's what makes it so important," Mira added excitedly. "A cross-species bond has never happened before. It proves human-Luminary genetic compatibility is possible. It's also why you're dreaming of our home world," Ilara said. "You're seeing my memories." Tom looked uncomfortable. "That's great, I guess, but we still have a sabotage to stop. We need proof of Doran's plan." Jack thought for a moment. "The ceremony tomorrow. Everyone will be there. We could use that time to search Doran's quarters." "Too risky," Tom shook his head. "Not if we work together," Jack insisted. "With Ilara's knowledge and your security clearance, we can do it." The next day, while most of the ship attended the ceremony, Jack, Tom, and Mira slipped into Doran's private quarters. They found hidden messages, plans for the sabotage, and something worse. "He's planning a coup," Jack whispered, reading the files on Doran's computer. "He wants to take control of the ship and cut all ties with Earth." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. "We've been discovered," Mira said fearfully. They rushed back to the ceremony hall, but it was too late. Armed Luminary loyal to Doran were everywhere. Theron was being held at gunpoint on the stage. Earth diplomats were surrounded. Doran's voice came over the ship's speakers. "Attention all personnel. I have taken command of this vessel for the safety of our species. The human contamination ends now." He appeared on the large screens around the hall, his white skin gleaming. "I will return our human guests to Earth by ejecting them directly into the atmosphere, without ships." Jack felt Ilara's fear through their growing bond. He reached out with his mind, trying to locate her. Asterisk Jack, asterisk her voice came into his thoughts. Asterisk the backup control room. Level 6. Hurry, asterisk. Jack grabbed Tom's arm. "We need to get to level 6. Now." "How do you know?" Tom asked. Jack tapped his temple. "I just do. Trust me." Jack and Tom ran through the ship's corridors, dodging Doran's guards. The backup control room on level 6 was hidden behind what looked like a storage closet. "How did you know about this place?" Tom whispered as they slipped inside. "I didn't," Jack admitted. "Ilara told me." "In my head." Inside, they found Ilara and Mira working at control panels. Several other Luminary and humans were there too. "We don't have much time," Ilara said. "Doran has locked down most systems. We need to contact Earth," Jack said, "before they think we've been attacked and launch their own strike." A tall Luminary man stepped forward. "Communications are blocked." Doran's first move. "This is Bay," Ilara introduced him. He used to serve with Doran before he saw the commander's true nature. Bay nodded. "Many of us disagree with Doran's actions. The Purists are not as many as they seem. They just have the weapons and key positions. Then we need to change that," Jack said. He looked around the room. "How many of you are there? How many who will stand against Doran?" "At least 30 Luminary," they answered. And maybe 15 humans. Jack thought for a moment. If we use our bond, he said to Ilara, can we reach others? Send messages secretly. Ilara's eyes widened. Maybe. The bond is stronger than I expected. We could try. Over the next few hours, Jack and Ilara sat together, focusing their minds. They reached out to others throughout the ship, spreading word of their resistance. More and more joined them. It's working, Ilara said, amazed. But why is our bond so strong? No human and luminary have ever connected this way. I might know why. Mira said, looking up from a computer screen. I've been analyzing Jack's DNA more deeply. There's something strange about it. Before she could explain, Bay rushed into the room. Doran's on the move. He's gathering the human diplomats in the main hangar. He's going to eject them in 10 minutes. We need to move now, Jack said. Ready or not? Their small force split into teams. Jack led one group to free the captured humans. Tom took another to secure the weapons room. Ilara went to find her father. Using their mental bond, Jack and Ilara coordinated the attacks. The element of surprise worked. Many of Doran's guards surrendered when faced with determined resistance. Jack's team reached the hangar just as Doran was preparing to open the airlock. A fierce fight broke out. During the battle, Jack came face to face with Doran himself. You can't win, human, Doran snarled. You don't belong here. You're wrong, Jack said, dodging Doran's attack. Our people can help each other. Help. Doran laughed. You don't even know what you are, do you? Did your princess not tell you the truth? Jack hesitated. What truth? We've been to Earth before, Doran said, circling Jack. Thousands of years ago. Some humans already carry luminary DNA from those early contacts. His eyes narrowed. Including you. Jack felt like he'd been punched. You're lying. Ask your princess, Doran sneered. Ask her why you can bond with her, why you learn our language so easily, why you dream of our world. Before Jack could respond, Tom arrived with reinforcements. Doran retreated, but his words stayed with Jack. Later, as the resistance gained control of more areas of the ship, Jack confronted Ilara. Is it true? Do I have luminary DNA? Ilara looked down. I only learned recently. My father suspected but wasn't sure until your DNA tests confirmed it. Why keep it secret? Politics, Ilara said simply. If people knew the luminary had visited Earth before. A commotion at the door interrupted them. 2 resistance fighters rushed in. We found him, they announced. High Council Leader Theron. He's alive. Theron walked in, looking tired but unharmed. In his hands were data files. I have proof, he said grimly, that Doran has been deliberately worsening our genetic crisis, creating diseases, all to maintain control through fear. Everyone stared in shock at this revelation. We need to spread the truth, Theron said, holding up the data files. Show everyone what Doran has been doing. Jack nodded. But first we need to stop him from killing the human diplomats. The room filled with tension as they planned their next move. Jack felt a strange energy running through his body. Since learning about his luminary ancestry, something seemed to be waking up inside him. Doran controls the main communications array, they said. We can't broadcast ship-wide. What about the emergency system? Ilara suggested. The one that can't be shut down. Tom shook his head. It only does alarms, not messages. Jack closed his eyes, focusing. In his mind, he could see the ship's systems, like a glowing map. This had to be part of his luminary abilities emerging. There's another way, he said suddenly. The science lab has its own communication system. It's small, but we could modify it to reach the whole ship. Mira looked surprised. How do you know that? Even I didn't know the lab system was separate. I just see it, Jack said. They split into teams again. Jack, Ilara, and Mira headed for the science lab. Tom and Bay led fighters to hold off Doran's forces. Theron worked on contacting Earth to prevent an attack. In the lab, Jack's hands moved over the equipment with strange confidence. He connected systems that shouldn't work together, rerouted power, and bypassed security. "How are you doing this?" Mira asked, watching in amazement. "It's like I've always known," Jack said, not looking up. "Like the knowledge was sleeping in my DNA." Alarms blared. Through their bond, Jack felt Ilara's warning. "Doran's men are coming." "Hurry, asterisk." "Almost done," Jack said. "Get ready with the files." The door burst open. Doran himself stood there with 6 armed guards. "Step away from the equipment," he ordered. "Now." Jack stared at the commander. "It's over, Doran. We know what you've been doing to your own people." "What I did was protect our purity," Doran snarled. "Better to let some die than pollute our bloodline with human DNA." "But I already have luminary DNA," Jack said. "And I'm fine. Better than fine." Doran raised his weapon. "Then you'll be the first example of cleansing." Suddenly, the ship shook violently. Everyone stumbled. "Earth ships," Mira said, checking a monitor. "They're attacking. They think we've been taken hostage." Jack knew they had minutes before the fighting would destroy everything. He looked at Ilara, and in that moment, they share the thought. Together, they lunged for the communication controls. Doran fired, the energy blast hitting the wall beside them. Jack felt pain as small fragments hit his arm, but he kept moving. Jack's hands flew over the console while Ilara loaded Theron's files. Guards rushed forward, but Mira threw herself in their path, buying precious seconds. "Now," Jack shouted, pressing the final command. The communication system activated. Screens throughout the ship lit up, not just with Theron's evidence of Doran's crimes, but with a live feed of the current moment, showing humans and Luminary working together against Doran's forces. "This is Jack Reed," Jack said into the microphone, his voice broadcasting to every corner of the ship. "And this is Princess Ilara. What you're seeing is the truth. Commander Doran has been poisoning his own people to maintain power through fear." Ilara stepped forward. He would rather see the Luminary die out than accept help from humans, help that could save us all. The images of humans and Luminary fighting side by side spread throughout the ship. More of Doran's supporters laid down their weapons. "This broadcast is also going to Earth," Jack continued. "Stop your attack. We are working together to resolve this peacefully." Doran lunged at Jack in fury. "You've ruined everything." As they struggled, Jack felt something change inside him. Energy surged through his body. His skin began to glow with a faint blue light. "What's happening to me?" he gasped, as the world around him seemed to slow down. The last thing he saw was Ilara's face, her eyes wide with concern, before darkness took him. Jack opened his eyes slowly. Bright lights made him blink. He was in the medical bay, surrounded by beeping machines. How long had he been here? "He's awake." Ilara's voice was filled with relief. She appeared above him, her face showing signs of worry and lack of sleep. "What happened?" Jack asked. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "Your body changed," Ilara explained softly. "Your luminary DNA fully activated. It nearly killed you." Jack tried to sit up. Ilara helped him. That's when he saw his arms. His skin had a subtle blue glow to it, like Ilara's but fainter. "I look different," he said. Tom walked into the room and grinned. "That's an understatement, buddy. You're the talk of both species now. The first human luminary hybrid." "Doran?" Jack asked. "In custody," Tom said. "Most of his supporters surrendered after your broadcast. Earth called off their attack once they saw what was happening." Mira entered, carrying scientific equipment. "Your transformation is remarkable," she said excitedly. "The genetic sequences we've been trying to create in the lab. Your body did it naturally when under extreme stress." "You're the key," Ilara said. "Your DNA shows us how human and luminary genetics can combine safely. It's already helping us develop treatments for our people. Jack tried to process this information. So I'm stuck like this. Half human, half luminary. You're still you, Ilara said firmly. Just more. The best of both species. 2 weeks later, Jack stood beside Ilara in the grand meeting hall. His strength had returned. He was getting used to his new appearance and the enhanced senses that came with it. High Council leader Theron addressed the gathered humans and luminary. Today marks a new chapter in the history of both our peoples. He gestured to the documents on the table. This accord establishes a permanent exchange between Earth and the luminary homeworld. Knowledge, culture, and eventually, people will move freely between our worlds. Captain Miller signed for Earth. Theron signed for the luminary. The room erupted in applause. During the celebration, Theron approached Jack. My scientists tell me your transformation holds the key to saving our species. For this, you have my eternal gratitude. He looked at his daughter, then back to Jack. And my blessing. Jack nodded, understanding his meaning. Theron knew about his feelings for Ilara. Later, Jack found Ilara alone in the Garden of Echoes, where they had first met secretly. The plants seemed more vibrant now, the Earth and luminary species growing stronger together. So, Jack said, I've been thinking about what you said when we first met. Ilara tilted her head. Which part? The be my mate part, Jack said with a smile. He knelt down on one knee, pulling out a small box. Inside was a ring made of earth silver and luminary crystal. On Earth, we have a tradition, he explained. When someone wants to spend their life with another person, they do this. He held up the ring. Ilara, will you marry me? Ilara's skin glowed brighter with joy. Yes, she said, but we must also complete the luminary bonding ritual. What does that involve? Jack asked. Nothing complicated. Ilara smiled. Just joining our minds completely, sharing all our memories, feeling each other's feelings for the rest of our lives. Jack laughed. Just that, huh? 1 year later, Jack and Ilara stood before the first graduating class of human and luminary diplomats. These young people would help build bridges between their worlds. Jack looked out at their faces, some human, some luminary, all hopeful. When Princess Ilara first said, "Be my mate, human," I was speechless. Jack told them. I didn't understand then what was beginning. But sometimes the universe brings together the most unlikely matches to create something entirely new. He took Ilara's hand, their skins glowing in harmony. And that's how progress truly happens.